In the next highlight of the notes, I just have the cost of not healing. A lot of times we are so in survival mode of let me just get through this project. Let me just get through this next month of work. Let me just get through my kid in toddler phase. It'll be better when they're in kindergarten. I said that with raising my own kid. Oh, if we could just get to kindergarten. Oh, if we could just get to middle school. We could just get to high school. And we're so in that survival mode of just trying to get to the next goal post that we don't realize the effect sometimes and the cost of not healing. For me, I had to see repeated patterns show up a lot before I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm the common denominator here. What's going on? And not that there's something wrong with me, but just why is this repeated pattern keep showing up over and over? I was married and divorced 5 times in 30 years. I got married young. I'm 50 now, and that repeated pattern was something that I kept being stuck in that pattern because I kept pointing the finger outward. I didn't yet know to turn that attention inward. So I would say, well, this guy was like that, and it's his fault, and that's why it was the divorce. Oh, well, this guy left me, and so it was his fault, and that's why the divorce. And then like, oh, well, this guy I just picked, a child, and this is why this guy didn't work. So it wasn't until I started looking at what was going on inside of me that was tolerating these situations that I needed to look at. So here's a little tidbit about the core wounds, these core beliefs inside of us. The core wound will keep bringing situations and events and people into our life in the attempt to heal, in the attempt to get us to start looking inward. And when we start looking inward, those situations and people and things don't need to show up anymore. Once it's processed, and this is a true story, like my life looks completely different now than it did even just 5 years ago. So this becomes a lifelong practice that we do. And it's life-changing, because that pattern alone, we're talking about the cost of not healing. Emotional heartache, lost time, lost business opportunities, the cost of attorneys and settlements and divorce. It's huge amounts of pain, turmoil, suffering, and money. And I saw one figure, a person had come up with a cost of $10,836. My not healing costs a lot more than that. And she broke it down to the cost of therapy bills and medical bills, medication and supplements, addiction costs. I added this in, the cost of addiction in shopping, gambling, drugs, alcohol, food, like weight loss plans, weight loss diets, other quick fixes that have been attempted and failed, unpaid absence at work. Then there's also a cost of time away from family, missed opportunities at work, physical health complications, because these core beliefs, these core wounds, these negative emotions, and these disconnected parts inside of us, oh yeah, great cause of stress. That is also the #1 leading cause of dis-ease in our life, is stress. And then people think, well, we need to just lower our stress. And they're trying to lower the stress in external ways. I'll stop working overtime, or I'll take a vacation. or I'll, get a weekly massage. External, external, external. The internal stress being caused from the core wounds and negative emotions, and that emotional surge that's continually erupting inside is the real root of the stress and the root of drawing in more and more stress. So we might eliminate, like I used to be like, okay, there's too much on my plate. I'm going to take one thing off my plate, and then 2 or 3 things would be added. Why? We'll get to that. Okay. How triggers tie in with these core beliefs and negative emotions. So here's where we're going to actually get to the triggers. These are things that show up in the external world. So we're like, we can see them with our eyesight, maybe after 5 times like I did, but eventually we'll see them. Eventually we'll see the repeated patterns, and eventually we'll see, oh, we keep getting triggered by this certain thing. I keep getting triggered by this commercial on TV, or I keep getting triggered by my boss anytime they ask me to do a project, or I keep getting triggered by my kid when they're doing this. The core beliefs inside that are formed from that core wound is what sparks the negative emotions that actually spark the thoughts in the present moment. These core wounds, it's almost like they're like behind us, like going through our subconscious, through our vision, our eyesight into the present moment, creating the perception. So I explain it like it's like those guards on the horses, like around here we have the horse and carriage tours and stuff, and these horses have these guards on their peripheral vision, on their bridles, so they only stay going forward and they're not distracted by anything in the peripheral vision. These core wounds that hold the core beliefs, that create the negative emotions from these disconnected parts inside of our subconscious, only are able to maintain direct vision inside of those blinders because they're constantly looking for anything that looks similar to the original core wound, because they're trying to prevent any future pain. So when you're trying to be alert and look for specific things that look like something else, we can't have this wide, expansive peripheral vision doing that. It would be like, oh, way overwhelming, right? These core wounds of these parts inside of our subconscious, inside of these blinders, are like, oh, look there, look there, look there, look there, look there, look there. And everything that they see will correlate back to, oh, this looks like that thing that happened back then, so we're going to do this. This is the survival skill that we took on back then, so this is what we're going to do. And basically that's what a trigger is. Anything that's pinging in very narrow field of vision that looks like anything that pings a core wound, that's what a trigger is. The trigger ignites that negative emotion that has the belief underneath it, that shoots that story up. So the fears that became ingrained, especially from the repetitive emotional overwhelm. This is why I tell people, you could have had the best parents. You could have had the best childhood. You still had emotional overwhelm. If you are seeing repeated patterns in your current life or triggers in your current life that are negatively affecting your life, that's what you need to focus on. You could have had the best childhood ever, and you're still going to have 1 or 2 things that will show up. And then if you had, trauma, even big T or little t trauma in your life, in your childhood, It's even more so, more complex of a system, more layers to go through, but still very much manageable. So the fears that became ingrained from repetitive emotional overwhelm will show up in adult life because those original core wounds continue to scream for your attention. They want attention and acknowledgement in order to be processed. And this is really, we have so much anxiety now, especially since COVID, since 2020 with COVID and being locked down and disconnected from other people, and this fear that was everywhere in the external world seemed to have really ignited a lot of anxiety that people have now, and they don't know how to overcome it or cure it. So, and I'm seeing this a lot too with people contacting me, this anxiety. So a lot of times we have core wounds that stay kind of under the surface. They're under the current. They're not ignited by anything. There's not been a death. There's not been a job loss. There's not been a divorce. So we're smooth sailing. What happened with COVID was it created emotional overwhelm that is similar to a death, a divorce, a job loss, any other major life event in a great majority of the population. So in this country, we are very accustomed to being, for the most part, kind of cared for, safe in the world, safe in society, generally speaking. COVID created this emotional overwhelm in our external world that created the opportunity to ignite core wounds in a great majority of the population. That is my theory as to why we are seeing so much anxiety now, especially in our young people.